You can absolutely turn your TFSA into the engine that powers location freedom if you understand the rules and build around them. Imagine being able to live in a smaller Canadian city, spend winters abroad, or take a year to travel without blowing up your long-term financial security. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, buckle up because we're about to make it real. Most Canadians massively underuse the one account that can make that possible, the TFSA. In this video, I'll show you how to use your TFSA as the backbone of a mobile lifestyle, tax-free growth, flexible withdrawals, and smart contribution strategies, plus real-life examples so you can see what this looks like in practice. Spoiler alert, it involves less spreadsheet anxiety and more beach time. Here's what we'll cover: what location freedom really means in a Canadian context, TFSA rules that matter when you move, travel, or work remotely, how residency and cross-border rules can quietly cost you money. And trust me, the CRA is not as forgiving as your grandmother. How to build a TFSA allocation specifically for mobility, and short case studies, young saver, semi-retiree, digital nomad, and a non-resident penalty trap that'll make you wince. Grab a notebook or screenshot the checklists. This is practical, not theoretical. Let's dive in. Location freedom doesn't always mean quitting your job to live on a beach, though if that's your vibe, no judgment. For a lot of Canadians, it's about moving from a high-cost city like Toronto or Vancouver to a mid-sized city or smaller town where rent and everyday costs can drop significantly. It's about using remote or hybrid work to spend part of the year in another province or country, or semi-retiring early and using savings to bridge the gap until CPPOAS and pensions start. The big opportunity: if you can lower your fixed living costs, you can redirect savings into tax-advantaged accounts like the TFSA and build a portable, tax-free pool of money that travels with you. For example, recent TFSA limits mean that if you were 18 in 2009 and a resident every year, your cumulative room hit about $95,000 by 2024 and is projected around $109,000 by 2026, thanks to yearly limits like $7,000 in 2024 through 2026. That's enough to fund multiple years of flexible living if you plan it well, or, a really nice van. Let's strip the TFSA down to the rules that directly affect location freedom. First, contribution room. The TFSA annual limit was $7,000 for 2024 and remains $7,000 in 2025 and 2026, with lifetime room of about $95,000 by 2024 and $109,000 by 2026 for someone eligible since 2009. Unused room carries forward, so if you haven't used it, it stacks up over time. It's like rollover minutes, but way more useful. Withdrawals and recontributions. Withdrawals are tax-free and do not show up on your Canadian tax return. Any amount you withdraw is added back to your contribution room at the start of the next calendar year. Not immediately, unless you had unused room available. So don't get too excited and double dip in December. And over contributions and penalties, if you contribute more than your available room, CRA charges a 1% per month tax on the excess until it's removed. That's like a gym membership you forgot to cancel, except the CRA actually notices. Eligible investments. You can hold cash, GICs, mutual funds, ETFs, most listed stocks and bonds. Income and gains inside the TFSA are tax-free in Canada. These rules are what make the TFSA so powerful for mobility. You can build up capital tax-free, pull it out on your schedule, and not worry about bumping yourself into higher tax brackets when you take a year off. Here's where many digital nomad plans go wrong. If you leave Canada and become a non-resident for tax purposes, your existing TFSA can stay open and continues to grow tax-free in Canada, but you stop earning new contribution room while non-resident. Any contribution made while you're a non-resident is hit with a 1% per month tax on the amount contributed until you withdraw it or become resident again. Example, you move abroad and accidentally contribute $6,000 to your TFSA as a non-resident. CRA can charge 1% per month. That's $60 per month, or $720 if the error sits all year. And if that same contribution also puts you over your regular TFSA room, there can be an additional 1% per month on the excess. Stacking the penalties. It's like getting a parking ticket on top of a speeding ticket. Not fun. That's why I emphasize, before you become non-resident, stop TFSA contributions, confirm your room, and know your departure date. The penalties are real and can quietly eat into your mobility fund. Now, if you are a US citizen, green card holder, or move to the US, the TFSA is not recognized as tax-free by the IRS. Earnings can be taxable annually in the US and may require complex reporting. FBAR, FATCA forms, and sometimes trust forms like 3520 and 3520A. The takeaway, if the US is in your plans, you should get cross-border tax advice before you rely on a TFSA as your main mobility fund. Uncle Sam does not play around. Now let's flip to the positive. How to structure your TFSA specifically for location freedom. Think of your TFSA as 3 internal buckets. First, the emergency buffer. 3 to 6 months of essential expenses, parked in a high-interest TFSA savings account or very short-term GICs. For many people, this might be $9,000 to $30,000 depending on lifestyle. Second, the move and relocation fund. Money earmarked for flights, deposits, furniture, visas, and initial months in a new city. Often 1 to 12 months of expected costs held in cash or laddered GICs so the timing matches your move date. Third, the opportunity and growth pool, longer-term capital invested in low-cost, diversified ETFs or index funds for tax-free growth. This is what lets you eventually fund extended travel or partial retirement without touching RRSPs or paying tax on withdrawals. A practical split for someone focused on flexibility might be 20 to 30% cash, 40 to 50% short-term fixed income, 20 to 30% diversified equity ETFs. Why is the TFSA ideal for a move? Withdrawals are tax-free, so pulling out $20,000 for a move doesn't affect your Canadian marginal tax rate or benefits like OAS or credits the way RRSP withdrawals would. Because withdrawals add back to next year's room, you're not permanently losing tax-free space. You can rebuild it once you're settled back in Canada, as long as you respect the calendar year timing. Let's look at some real-life scenarios. Case 1, young saver building a mobility fund. You're 34, have $12,000 in your TFSA, and you want location freedom in 5 to 15 years. You set up automatic contributions of $800 per month to your TFSA at a 5% annual return that can grow to roughly the high $70,000s after 5 years and the low $180,000s after 15 years, all tax-free in Canada. With that kind of balance, you can comfortably fund extended travel, a move to a lower-cost city, or a sabbatical without touching RRSPs or triggering taxable withdrawals. Case 2, semi-retiree using TFSA to reduce RRF pressure. You're 58 with $300,000 in TFSA and RRSPs you'll convert to RRF later. You'd like to semi-retire and live partly abroad. If you withdraw $30,000 per year from your TFSA, those withdrawals are tax-free and can be used to buffer your RRSP withdrawal so your taxable income stays low. That can cover a big chunk of your living costs for 10 to 15 years depending on returns, and it lets you delay or reduce RRF withdrawals, keeping your taxable income and OAS clawback risk lower later. This is exactly how a TFSA becomes the backbone of a mobile lifestyle. It lets you fund the early, fun years without cranking up your future tax bill. Case 3, 1-year digital nomad. You're 28. TFSA has $15,000 and you want to travel for a year with a budget of $24,000. You save $500 per month into your TFSA for 18 months pre-trip. That adds $9,000 plus growth, getting you to your target. During your year away, you withdraw from the TFSA tax-free to cover costs and keep your Canadian tax situation simple. The key: before leaving, you confirm your TFSA room and pause contributions as soon as you'll be treated as non-resident, so you don't trigger the 1% per month penalty. Case 4, non-resident penalty trap. You move abroad, are considered non-resident, and absent-mindedly contribute $6,000 to your TFSA. CRA can assess a 1% per month tax on that $6,000, $60 per month, $720 over 12 months until you withdraw that contribution or become resident again. Ouch. This is why tracking residency dates, contribution room, and automatically stopping TFSA contributions before departure is part of a serious location freedom plan. Beyond the TFSA itself, your operational setup matters. Keep a Canadian mailing address and CRA account up to date so TFSA notices and assessments reach you. Maintain at least one Canadian bank account and your TFSA provider and enable online access. Use a credit card with no foreign transaction fees, and if traveling extensively, consider a multi-currency or low-fee conversion service to avoid losing 2 to 3% on every purchase. On the tax side, continue filing Canadian returns if you remain resident, and if your status changes, make sure you understand how that affects your TFSA room and penalties. Here's a checklist you can screenshot or jot down. First, confirm your TFSA room. Use CRA My Account or a reputable calculator. Remember, 2024 through 2026 annual limits of $7,000 and lifetime room up to about $95,000 by 2024 and $109,000 by 2026 if eligible since 2009. Second, define your target. Add up 6 to 12 months of living costs, plus move and setup costs for your destination. That's your minimum TFSA location freedom target. Third, build the 3 buckets. Emergency buffer in TFSA HISA or cash. Move fund in short-term GICs or very short bond ETFs. Growth pool in low-cost diversified ETFs for longer-term freedom. Fourth, automate contributions. Set a monthly TFSA contribution, for example, $500 to $1,000 per month, and increase it whenever you reduce rent or other fixed costs. Fifth, track withdrawals and recontributions. If you withdraw for travel or a move, log the amount and remember it only adds back to room next January 1st. Avoid recontributing the same year unless you clearly have spare room. Sixth, plan around residency. If you expect to become non-resident, stop contributions before your departure date and read CRA's non-resident TFSA rules to avoid the 1% per month penalty. Seventh, get cross-border advice if needed. If the US or another high-compliance country is involved, talk to a cross-border tax specialist about TFSA treatment before you move. Using your TFSA as the core of your plan, maximizing room, choosing the right mix of liquid and growth investments, and respecting the residency and contribution rules gives you a portable, tax-efficient pool of money that can literally buy you freedom of location without sabotaging your long-term goals. If you want a follow-up video where I plug different TFSA balances and contribution rates into a calculator and compare timelines, for example, how long $50,000, $100,000, or $200,000 in a TFSA can fund life in a lower-cost city, drop your age, province, and rough TFSA balance in the comments so I can tailor real-world examples. Thanks for watching, and here's to your location freedom.